You know what? I don't actually think Nintendo needs to add another console to Nintendo Switch Online anytime soon. But what if they did? I think adding Wii and DS would completely change the conversation. Because suddenly, you're not just paying for some retro games every now and then. You're getting access to two of the greatest gaming libraries Nintendo has ever made. Adding this would not just change NSO from a mediocre to a great subscription, but rather an outstanding must-buy when owning a Nintendo Switch 2. The more I think about it, the more this just makes sense. Nintendo Wii and the Nintendo DS were basically my childhood. If you grew up in the mid-2000s, chances are you're in the same boat as well. These weren't just successful consoles, they were phenomenons. Everybody had a DS in their backpack. Everybody had a Wii sitting in the living room. Parents played them. Grandparents played them. They somehow convinced people who had never touched a controller before to suddenly start bowling in their living room. Sure, these consoles were built around gimmicks, but they were damn good gimmicks. And I think that gimmick factor is why people immediately dismiss the idea of them coming to Switch 2. The Wii's got motion controls and the DS got that dual screen, so it's virtually impossible to accurately replicate those feelings again, right? No, not at all. I think the Switch 2 is fully capable of replicating them. Let's start with the Wii. People act like Nintendo would have to reinvent the wheel to make Wii games work, when in reality, they really wouldn't. The Joy-Con already have gyro controls. Switch 2 still has motion functionality. There's even an IR sensor on the right Joy-Con. Is it one-to-one with original Wii hardware? Not exactly, but it's honestly close enough for a huge chunk of the Wii library. Games like New Super Mario Bros. Wii, easy. Mario Party 8, absolutely. Even games that relied on pointer controls could probably be adapted pretty comfortably. It's not perfect, but Nintendo has solved much bigger problems before. Now, the DS. This one's always the funny argument. People immediately go, but the dual screens. Guys, just rotate the screen. That's it, seriously. Just let us play the Switch vertically. We've literally seen Nintendo do vertical games before. Developers have already released vertical modes for arcade collections. Just give us the option. One screen becomes the top display, one becomes the bottom. Done. Nintendo, come on, do us a solid here. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. And once we've established that it's actually possible, now comes the fun part, the games. For Wii, I'm going to be a little biased here. Give me Resident Evil 4 Wii Edition. Still one of the coolest ways to play that game. Give me New Super Mario Bros. Wii, arguably the best New Super Mario entry in the series. Mario Party 8, which is just tied to my nostalgia at this point. I'd also love Okami showing up too, even though that one's a bit less likely considering it's been ported to the Switch. And then Twilight Princess. Now, realistically, I don't think Nintendo would do it if those long-standing remaster rumors are actually true. They're not going to put something on NSO that they think they can sell again for 60 or 70 bucks. I mean, this is still Nintendo we're talking about. The DS library though, oh man, this is where I'd probably spend way too much of my life. GTA Chinatown Wars, one of the most underrated GTA games ever made. Flipnote Studio. Can you imagine the horrific animations people would be making in this thing? That'd actually be incredible. Chrono Trigger. Yes, I know it's originally a Super Nintendo game, but the DS version is fantastic. Mario and Luigi, Bowser's Inside Story. Still, one of my favorite RPGs Nintendo has ever published. And Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow. Yeah, inject that directly into NSO please. Now, obviously, Some of these have already been ported. Some probably will never happen. Some have licensing headaches. But that's kind of missing the point. The Wii and DS libraries are so ridiculously stacked that even if half the games never made it over, there'd still be an insane amount worth playing. Honestly, I could probably make an entire separate video just listing games I'd want to see. And I'm willing to bet all of you have completely different picks. Now, here's the thing. Do Wii and DS actually need to come to Nintendo Switch Online? Honestly, not really. Nintendo's already offering NES, SNES, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo 64, GameCube, Virtual Boy, even Sega Genesis. That's already a pretty ridiculous collection. But imagine adding Wii and DS on top of that. Suddenly, that $80 annual expansion pack doesn't just feel like a nice bonus anymore. It starts feeling like one of the best subscriptions in gaming. Because you're not just paying for online play, you're getting decades of Nintendo history that's genuinely hard to compete with. And I think it's the bigger picture here. Nintendo gets criticized a lot, sometimes rightfully, for how they handle older games. There are still classics trapped on old hardware. There are franchises that deserve another chance. Adding Wii and DS wouldn't solve everything, but it would be another huge step toward preserving those experiences. It also introduces those games to an entirely new generation. Not everyone owned a Wii. Not everyone owned a DS. Some people only know these games through social media and YouTube videos. Now they'd actually get to play them. And let's be honest, the timing couldn't be much better. Gaming has been going through kind of a weird stretch lately. We've seen publishers making some incredibly questionable decisions. PlayStation hasn't exactly been winning over consumers recently. Xbox is still trying to rebuild after years of confusing strategy. Meanwhile, Nintendo has mostly just kept doing Nintendo things. Sometimes they're frustrating, sometimes they're weird, but they've maintained a pretty loyal audience. Adding Wii and DS to Nintendo Switch Online would create so much goodwill. It'd sell more expansion pack subscriptions. It'd probably convince some people to buy a Switch too. And it would further cement Nintendo's biggest strength, their history. Because no one has a back catalog quite like Nintendo. At the end of the day, I don't know if this is something Nintendo is actually planning. Maybe it's years away. Maybe it never happens. But every time I think about it, it just feels like such an obvious win. The hardware can make it work. The games are legendary. The value would be incredible. And honestly, I think it turned Nintendo Switch Online from a service that's already pretty solid into one that's genuinely difficult to compete with. Now, the real question is, if Nintendo announced Wii and DS tomorrow, what's the first game you'd boot up? Because I already know mine. And I have a feeling some of your answers are going to make me realize I completely forgot about half my childhood. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like. It really helps the channel out. And if you want more gaming news, discussions, reviews, and deep dives like this, consider subscribing and following us on our social media. You'll find all the links down in the description. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And as always, I'll see you all in the next one.